Hi, and welcome back to David Pattinson's Accused Friends. Someone was asking me the other day, is there a vaccine for Riche's inflation? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. The total debasement of our currency by the British government is an outrage, and it's one of the big underlying stories of this lockdown that has not been discussed. What we've basically done is confined our entire economy to house arrest, but we've carried on printing money and paying money out to people. And of course, the value of that money has to depreciate because it's not backed up by production. Every pound in your pocket has to be backed up by a commensurate amount of production to give it value. If you do a hard day's work, you want to get your paycheck and spend it on goods and services that you want to buy. And obviously other people want to buy the goods and services you've produced with their money. But of course, if money keeps being inflated by Riche and there's no production to back it up, there can only be one outcome, which is that all of our people holding pounds are poorer. And we don't want this. And I want to talk today about getting our country back onto a gold standard, because gold is something that cannot be manipulated. We need to study this very closely and really learn much more about what money really is, and also how governments can manipulate fiat currencies. The pound is tied to the US dollar, which is the world reserve currency. But of course, the United States government is even more reckless with its money than we are. And, if any property investors are out there and they're renting out properties, if the tenant does not have a good financial track record, they'll sometimes ask for a guarantor, someone that can sign the lease and say, if the tenant fails to pay, I, the guarantor, will come in and pay on their behalf. Will be liable for the rental costs. And that's kind of how we operate now. The US dollar is the guarantor of the pound. But of course, if the guarantor is even more financially vulnerable and financially reckless than the tenant, it doesn't give your tenancy a lot of security. And I've got a £20 note right here, and it's depreciating in value every second, not just because the US dollar is depreciating, but also the UK pound, pound sterling is depreciating all the time as well. And if we take the fiat, if we take our money or the government's power to manipulate our currency away from them, it gives the government significantly less power, and it gives us, we the people, significantly more power. And, I want to talk about what money really is here. I mean, it is, in a nutshell, a standard of value, which everyone would recognize. It's a means of payment or a medium of exchange. And most importantly, it's a store of value. This £20 note should buy the same amount in 20 years as it does today, because it's storing the value of my labor. But of course, it's not going to be doing that. It's not going to be worth anything in 20 years. And money is only valuable or can only hold its valuable if it is scarce and remains scarce. And, pounds being printed by Riche all the time, are not scarce. I've also managed to get hold of, through a bit of luck, through a work colleague of mine, some gold, some physical gold. And this is 10 grams of gold, so it's about a third of an ounce. Gold is typically measured in ounces, on the open marketplace. And if you go back to 1971, around the time of the Bretton Woods Agreement, £20 note would be buying you about 3 of these. So that was kind of the price of, an ounce of gold back in those days. But of course, nowadays, you'd need about £1,500 to buy 3 of these. This gold bar here is worth about £500 today. And it's going to be increasing in value, not because gold's necessarily increasing, but because the value of our pounds is rapidly decreasing. And, it's a disgrace, because the people that earn the money are the people that go out and work for it and earn it and provide value for our economy. And, when I was growing up, I used to be taught that, you put your money in the bank and they look after your money for you, and they pay interest on that money, and then they lend it out to other people. And it's like a good system. It's like the smart people put their money in the bank. But now, of course, it's the dumb people putting their money in the bank. It's the banks that do not look after our money. They are reckless with our money. They make reckless loans. They depreciate our currency. They devalue our currency. And they make people who put money in the bank significantly poorer. And we've become an indebted nation. I mean, I was reading the other day that the UK has passed 100% debt to GDP ratio for the first time since 1960. And I'm pretty sure when the dust settles on this lockdown, we'll be heading pretty close to 200% of debt to GDP ratio. And it's because we have a government that's constantly blowing our money on things that don't provide us value. We dish out money on foreign aid. We spend endless amounts of money on welfare, and it's so the government can prop itself up, can gain more power over us. Why can't we, the people, have power over them? I mean, who's working for who here? Why is it not the government serving the people? Why is it the government or the people constantly serving the government? So I do recommend that we get on a gold standard. The elected officials, especially those in the Conservative Party, will never talk about this. They don't want the people being able to control their own wealth. Money is something that should be produced in the private sector as an exchange between free citizens. It's not something that you need to borrow from the government or get given from the government or get handouts from the government. The government want to keep you on a fiat currency, and this is paper. I mean, this can be printed really easily, but the government want to dispense with the inconvenience of printing paper. They want to go straight to digital currency, and that's why there's been this big move to stop people transacting cash as a result of the coronavirus. You can't transact cash because it might have might carry the virus on it. But a credit card or debit card, there's no way that's got a virus on it, so you could use that anytime. You could do the contactless payments, you can do electronic transfer. More and more companies, I heard like B&Q, they're not accepting cash at all. And of course, this benefits the government, it does not benefit the people. What benefits the people is having real money. Now, you got to protect your real money. You got to store it securely. The gentleman that gave me this, he inherited it from his grandfather, and he keeps it in a secure safe, in a gold storage facility. So you've got to be really careful about, where you store your money. But of course, you've got to have control over it. You can't let the banks have it. And, it significantly weakens the power of banks and the power of big government, which are pretty much one and the same these days. So I think we need to look very carefully at this. The anti-lockdown party is going to have a big platform of sound money, of the gold standard over the US dollar standard. And people say, hey, David, well, the US dollar must be backed up by gold. It's not. It came off the gold standard at the Bretton Woods, 1970 or 71 or whatever it was. The dollar's not backed up by anything except confidence, and I'm pretty much sure that no one in the United States has confidence in the dollar anymore. They're printing $1 trillion every 2 weeks, dishing it out all over the place, because there's less and less production to back it up, because unemployment's increasing, by millions and millions, and there's less and less people paying tax. There's less and less production being done, and the government's getting more and more into debt. And, I think they're up to like $26 or $27 trillion now. Britain will go the same way unless we get a control of our financial system. And that means getting back to sound money. It means getting the government out of our money. And, I just think one of the big disasters about this lockdown is the transfer of wealth. We constantly borrow money from children and grandchildren and spend it today. Why can't we be a country that bears the financial consequences of its decisions today with the money we spend today? Why do we have to constantly push money onto younger generations, to unborn people, to enjoy the benefits today? That's not a fair system. We totally need to ban generational theft, and we need to totally ban this debt-based monetary system we have, this corrupt monetary system we have. We have a political crisis, which leads to a financial crisis, and then the banks and big government dish out money to the companies they like, the bailout companies they like, whereas the companies they don't like go bankrupt. And you'll have noticed through this lockdown, Tesco's stayed open, whereas market stalls had to close. Why don't we have a lockdown where all the small businesses stay open and all the big businesses have to close? Big banks close, but private lenders stay open. The NHS closes, but private medicine stays open. Big supermarkets close, but local grocers and farmers stay open. No one in the government's going to want that kind of lockdown. They want the kind of lockdown that saves lives, but enriches the establishment at the expense of working people. And we've got to put a total stop to it. So I hope you like this video. Hope it gives you a lot of food for thought. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to be talking more about this in due course. So thanks very much.